Well, hello. As we said, we will start at 05, wherever 05 happens to be at your location. Welcome to the Fundamentals of Gaseous Halos KTP workshop. When we were first planning it and for months thereafter, I was imagining today I'd be looking at a view something like this. When I look out my window here, it's snowy and we're in the middle of winter in Michigan. We realized a few months ago that we're just going to have to deal with a remote workshop. And in a way, it's scary, exciting. I see that there are already 123 participants, and there's no way we would have had you all at KTP if this workshop had been in person. So the fact that it has to be remote actually opens a lot of possibilities and has forced the organizers to be very creative. And I'm just laughing to myself because in a strange twist of scheduling, I can hear the AAS meeting coming from the other room. But we're having KTP over here. This meeting would not have been possible without all the organizing team. And I want to thank Cameron Hummels, Beth Oppenheimer, and Just Work, who, I don't know, maybe you can say hi. Maybe you can like unmute yourselves and say hi briefly. We've been putting our heads together. If you want to say hi, go ahead now.
Hi. Hello.
Okay, great. You'll hear more later.
Hi.
Okay. And we've been doing our best to try to come up with a meeting that can be inclusive, that can be organized, that can have opportunities for experts to talk to experts, and also people to learn more about what their colleagues in other subfields are doing. At any point in the meeting, if you want to contact us about anything that's happening, we've set up a Gmail email address that just goes to the 4 organizers. So if you want to communicate directly with us, there's the email address down here at the bottom of the screen, ktp.halo21@gmail.com. Okay. And in trying to figure out how to organize the vast topic now of fundamentals of galactic halos, or sorry, gaseous halos, we settled on this set of 8 broad questions. There's 8 weeks. We tried to figure out how to capture the breadth of the subject in 8 questions, 1 per week, where you don't have to work on this question that week, but it will be the motivating question of the discussion. Okay. Did I hear okay, thought I heard somebody say something. Okay. Here the questions are, and please volunteer to help us in any way you can, because the way we've set things up, we're counting on the community to do a lot of contributing. I hope that everybody who's on this call right now can see at least one question, maybe more, where they already know something they can contribute to the meeting. The elements, you can read about them in more detail in the organizational document we mailed around, but I just want to briefly talk about our intentions for each of these elements. The first one, each week is going to have 2 keynote talks. And we have asked those speakers to give broad perspectives, to consider the question we've posed for the week and try to orient everybody in the meeting to what people are now thinking, what has happened, what they anticipate happening in regard to that question. So we're still in the process of scheduling all that, but we have keynote talks now scheduled for the first few weeks of the meeting. The next thing we're going to have is tutorials. So the idea here is on Wednesdays, we're going to have a series of shorter presentations where we've asked people to help others understand some topic that relates to their research. And so the idea here is we have a broad variety of people who are involved in the workshop, and we want everybody to become a little more familiar with what each other is doing. And so that's the point of the tutorials, and we are looking for volunteers. So if you want to give a 20-minute tutorial followed by question and answer, please contact the organizers with your idea, and we'll try to find a slot for you. Right now, there are a lot of open slots. So those will also be recorded and made available for later viewing. So in a way, you can think of it as a little bit of a legacy project. Once you make the tutorial, there might be a number of people who learn from it, not just that week, but into the future. Next thing is one of the features of a usual KATP meeting is the opportunity to talk with a bunch of world experts who just happen to be on that hallway. We can't do that in person, but we can try to do that through Slack. And so we are inviting people to propose conversation groups where we'll set it up on Slack, and people who are in that subfield can discuss things there. We also are hoping that they will be linking to and discussing topics that have come up in the tutorials, the keynote talks. Anybody can join a conversation group, but we want them to be led by people who are really expert in that subfield. On Friday, what we're hoping is that at very least, the people involved in conversation groups during the week where that question most pertains to that conversation group will be able to bring back to a larger group what's been happening, what the flavor of discussion has been, what ideas have come up, and it's going to be fairly, we don't know exactly how it's going to work yet, how to organize the broad group. We'll probably be identifying topics and having people break out into breakout rooms and come back and talk. But that's what's going to be happening on Fridays. Something I guess I'm particularly excited about is the idea of how do we get contributions about new results. And so we are setting up a format where anybody who's participating can contribute a 4-minute video about some new result that they have that they'd like to share. And we want to organize that on YouTube in a curated site on YouTube where we will collect contributions. And once they're there, conversation groups can link to them, and you can substantiate what you're talking about or learn what others are doing through that series of videos. So I also hope to get you thinking about what you might want to share with your colleagues in a brief video that we'll post. And then something you will get the opportunity to do later today is speed collaboration. Just we'll host that today, where we're going to give you the opportunity to be in a room with a series of colleagues one-on-one for a few minutes to brainstorm ideas. And so I'll have Jess talk more about that right before it happens a little later today. I also anticipate we're not going to go the full 2 hours allotted today, because normally we would be having more to talk about in the area of conversation groups. But right now we're just getting started. Now I want to pause just to see if anyone in the group has some questions about these program elements that we can answer for the group. You can raise your hand if you have a question about these elements. Okay, I see one from Nastasia.
Yeah. So I was wondering for the for sort of the conversation groups, are these meant to be really more specialized? Because I mean, I'm looking at a few of the things that are up there now, and I'm kind of thinking, oh well, that all looks that looks quite interesting actually. So how specialized are these things supposed to be?
I would say this: anybody can join if they want to learn what's going on. I think in the kind of we have keynote talks and tutorials where we're asking people to speak to a broader audience. In a conversation group, that will go how it goes, right? Okay. So we're not demanding that everybody provide complete background to everything they say. If you want to listen and learn, that's really great. We encourage that. But that's the place where if you really want to roll up your sleeves with colleagues and dig deep, that's where we expect that to happen. Is that clear?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, I see a question. Oh, hello. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Hey, good. Yeah, so how should we propose tutorials and or any of the other formats? Shall we just
contact the organizers.
That email.
We'll try to get set up. Yeah. So yeah, you can look over the weeks. As I said, right now things are pretty wide open, and you'll see that the tutorials on this week are kind of heavy on the organizers because we're trying to demonstrate to everybody else like what's happening. But yes, we welcome tutorial ideas.
Okay, and maybe a follow-up question: those results videos, are they going to be spread out over all these 8 weeks? Or
I would say we want to anybody who wants. Yeah. If you have a new result that's relevant for the question 8 weeks from now, put it up now, right? As long as you have it, make that video available. So what we're going to do is, if you have a title, a 2 or 3 sentence little abstract, like a mini abstract, just so people know what it's about. We want to kind of curate them as much as we can so people can find new results and just look at them. Obviously, in 4 minutes, you're not going to be able to dig very deep, but it's a way to make people aware. Anybody can submit one at any time, and we'll just stick them up.
Okay.
Can I just add really quickly, Mark, you threw up the email for the organizers, which is a fine way to get in touch with the 4 of us. However, we're all on Slack, and those of you familiar with Slack can DM us. You can start your own channel, which might indicate that you're interested in a specific topic. So, if you're familiar with Slack, Slack is a great way to get in touch with the organizers and with anybody else involved in the workshop.
Any other questions at this time?
It's also worth noting that for people interested in submitting a new results video, we're primarily going to do that over the Slack channel, Halo21-new results. So you can produce your video locally where you're talking to the camera or sharing your screen, showing your paper or your result or whatnot. And then once you've completed it and made it to a popular video format like MPEG or QuickTime or something like that, feel free to upload it into the Slack channel, Halo21 new results, and we will post it to the YouTube channel and then share that later in the meeting.
Yeah. Yes, I guess when I think of it, sometimes I think we're going to have an 8-week-long poster session. So yeah, if you miss a poster, it's still there, right? Any other questions at this time?
Mark, there's a question in the chat.
Okay, and it is, let me see. Oh, how does the acknowledgement process will proceed with a specific topic program during writing a paper and feature on galactic dynamics? Okay. Yeah, KTP in the past has said if you have been to KTP and worked on a paper while you're there, or had some ideas while you're there, there's an acknowledgement that should go in your acknowledgement section, and they have a specific form for doing that. I guess I'm sure they would love us to do that if you have benefited from this workshop while doing your work. Obviously, we're not in residence, but if you like KATP as an institution, you help them by acknowledging them in your papers. So they're grant funded partly by the NSF. And so when they rate their proposals, the number of citations, or I shouldn't say citations, the number of acknowledgements they get matters. Okay, so I think if we had Lars Bilston here today, he'd be encouraging you, if the meeting has benefited you or helped your work, please acknowledge the KTP. And they have, we don't have it in our program description document, and maybe we'll put it up. We'll ask Lars what kind of acknowledgement they would like to see, and we'll put it in there. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, Sanyutka.
Hello, I actually want to ask that for the tutorials, do we need to have some specific, like, specific knowledge in that subject, or like a level you have researched on that? Is there some criteria for that?
Yeah, the audio for me is a little fuzzy, so I haven't made it out. I think you're saying the tutorials, you're asking what kind of acknowledgements are necessary in them?
No, I'm asking what level of proficiency in the subject you're giving a tutorial, like the 20-minute thing. So what level of expertise is required for it?
I would say, I think the tutorials are going to be a wide range of things. In fact, one of our motives in setting up the first week is to show the diversity of what we have in mind. I will be doing one on Wednesday that's about the seemingly simple concept of virial temperature that I hope will be suitable for a first-year graduate student or even undergraduate. Cameron will be talking about a specific piece of software, Trident, which is used to analyze simulations of the CGM. And Prochaska will be talking about the subject of FRBs and how you probe the CGM with them. And so that should span, spans a large variety of things and a different number of expert levels also. But the idea is not to speak only to the experts, it's to open a door for your colleagues to learn more about what you do in your subfield, okay? But I think expect variety in the tutorials. Is that clear?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Evan Scanapico is posting in the chat, being expert in what grant agencies like to see. He has put an acknowledgement suggestion right there in the chat.
I don't know about that, but that's a grant number, so.
Okay. Yeah, based on what it's done in the past. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So again, I hope really we're all going to be learning more as we try this out, and by example, how all these program elements work. The organizers have benefited partly from some of KATP's prior experience, but they have let us know that I think so far we're the most ambitious in embracing the possibilities of digital media. So we'll see how it goes, and I hope you all enjoy the adventure and learn along with us. I want to step on now. Usually what will happen at this time is a more extensive introduction to the question of the week than I'm going to give here. The first question is, how do gaseous halos depend on halo mass? And we chose it because it's, it should be all-encompassing regarding what we're talking about in this meeting. We want to be talking about everything from the CGM around dwarf galaxies to the intercluster medium around galaxy clusters, and try to see what kind of physics underlies it all. And so we're starting with this question. And so you can see the keynote speakers that we have for the first week. I have already mentioned the tutorials that we have planned. And the new conversations, they're all new as of this week, but the ones we already have initiated are the X-CGM conversation and the FRB conversation. And ... means anything you'd like to start this week, just let us know. It doesn't have to even pertain to this question. We want conversations to get started. And when the week or weeks come when your conversation is relevant, we may have you be a featured conversation and speak to the entire group about what's been happening in your Slack conversation. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Ben to talk about the X-CGM conversation and what we hope to discuss there. You ready, Ben?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll stop
Thank
there.
you, Mark, for a great introduction. And I assume, unless I hear feedback, people can hear me all right. Yeah, so these conversation groups are a great idea, and I am going to share my screen and go into presentation mode. And I just put some slides together with, Mark hasn't contributed to these yet. He's been very busy preparing the introduction. So he will be a part of this, one of the initiators here. And the focus here is the hot side of the CGM. And I know I'm quite interested in the ultraviolet absorption line side of the CGM, given previous work I've done. But I've gotten into the X-ray CGM, and that the hot CGM is not just X-rays. It can be FRBs. It can be Sunayev-Zeldovich. But I think we should have a continuing conversation that spans maybe the whole program, all 8 weeks, and it will be featured more prominently some weeks than others. And I think the first 2 weeks are very pertinent for this conversation. Usually we would have 15 minutes for presenting this week's, one of this week's conversations. I don't think I'm going to go that long today, but I did want to go over sort of some of the logistics. And the main place to go is the Slack channel, which is Halo 21 XCGM. And last time I checked, I already saw 50 people on it, and it's definitely open, and people should feel welcomed and not intimidated about joining. And I think what we will do is work on an online Google document. I've already had somebody work on this a little bit, and it'll be a living document in which we are all invited. I wrote these slides very fast, so there's a lot of spelling errors. To edit and expand. Something that I really want to take an opportunity to do is have in-person interaction outside normal Halo 21 hours, and come up with some targeted interaction, often pertaining to the weekly keynote talks, and also maybe allow live participation at a time that is outside the usual 8 to 10 Pacific time presentations, especially for some of the people we couldn't accommodate as easily, such as people in Australia and East Asia, and maybe Israel as well. So, some of these first couple weeks, I'm happy to set up a couple times to meet. And I already put a doodle up there, and so feel free to put, and that'll gauge interest as well. And on Friday, we will present some of the results of our conversation. And so I'm excited about making some progress. A little bit, about why study I should say X-ray CGM, or just hot CGM. And, one thing that we will talk a lot about is the cool ultraviolet phase. But that lives in a medium that is likely tenuous, diffuse, hot, and understanding that phase and the medium in which the cool phase lives and forms out of it, interacts, is crucial as part of this program. And I think we will hear, number 2, a lot about how does cool gas cool or precipitate out of a halo, and on what time scale. Number 3, something that is especially pertinent for this week, is how does halo mass, how does the hot phase change as a function of halo mass? And is there a certain halo where you transition from primarily cool phase to hot phase? And we all know probably, or a lot of us have talked in this field, have talked about missing baryons. And where are they? Are they in a hot phase? Are they ejected from the halo? Or are they a combination of both? And I something that I'm really interested in is, does the hot halo medium around like a Milky Way galaxy originate from galactic processes like feedback, heating, or is it a halo process such as virialization? I think on the X-ray side of things, the motivation is driven by a lot of observational momentum, there's especially some recent CGM data from over the last several years that I don't think has been completely digested by the CGM community, especially from XMM Newton of nearby galaxies. Number 2, E-Rosita is launched and successful, and it's, I believe, capturing the most X-ray photons ever. I can't confirm that. I think that's right. And it will allow a revolutionary new approach to the X-ray CGM. There's missions that bridge the gaps, between massive clusters, the ICM to groups, the intergroup medium, to the CGM, which is, more like Milky Way mass galaxies or individual galaxies dominating their halos. We'll also talk about X-ray absorption spectroscopy, which is sort of, a little bit of a desperate field right now. You have only a handful of absorbers, and they're talked a lot about, but I think that will change, hopefully with a mission to be launched in the 2020s like Arcus or something similar to that. And of course, on the horizon, with some with question marks next to them, are a number of missions. Athena doesn't have, Athena will be launched. XRISM is going to be launched next year, and longer timeline. And based on the Decado are things like Lynx and Axis. I missed a couple there. And something I want to emphasize is that we are not just limited to the CGM, to a halo mass that is like hosting, dominant central galaxies like the Milky Way. We'll be talking about the intergroup medium, the intercluster medium in a holistic sense. And also, it's kind of funny, X-ray astronomers call IGM the intergroup medium, but we will use these terms, the IG little rm, throughout the discussion here, just to make it clear to everyone. There's going to be a lot of discussion topics ongoing, and that's kind of covered in some of the main questions. And this is incomplete. We'll fill this in as we go through the program. And I don't know, I encourage you to fill out the doodle. I do want to meet maybe as soon as tomorrow. I definitely have something that, something basic I can talk about is, just talking about X-ray observational units and trying to approach them from a theoretical sense. And something that I've run into is it's hard to look at some of these recent results, especially of the X-ray emission around normal like spiral-like galaxies and elliptical galaxies. Is often there are units in these papers that are very different. They're in counts per second or counts for a given telescope, for a given instrument. And something that I want to take the opportunity here to advocate for is to come up with like a standard set of units that observers and theorists and simulators can all work on, and such as some units for surface brightness for a source X-ray spectrum. So that's sort of some of the things that we can start talking about this week. And I think I will stop my share now and take any questions, and hopefully generate some interest. Thank you. Thanks for the hand mark.
Yeah. Okay. Now we have another group that is starting, conversation group, the Fast Radio Burst group. I'm not formally an initiator. If any of the initiators are here, I'll give them a moment to step up. I know that at least one of them couldn't make it. If no
So
one steps up,
I think X declared that I'm an initiator, so I can say.
You've been deputized. Excellent. Go ahead, Brian.
I don't have any sort of bespoke slides, but I can just give a quick overview with a couple of slides from other talks if that's useful. So let me just set that up. Okay, so fast radio bursts are just the most wonderful thing. They're one of the most exciting things in astronomy right now, I think. I'm sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Bryan Gaensler from the University of Toronto. So they're these sudden, as the name suggests, they are these sudden, brief, millisecond, very bright flashes of radio emission that occur randomly throughout the sky, perhaps with around 1,000 of them a day. They are now known to be coming from distant objects. We have about 14 of them that have been localized to distant galaxies at low redshifts. But the exciting thing for this conversation is that they're polarized. And that means that you can detect the rotation measure of these bursts, which is the integral along the entire line of sight of NBDL. And they're also, because they're impulsive, they're also dispersed, which means that you get a measurement of the total electron column along the line of sight as well. And so you get two numbers. There's actually more information you get scattering as well. But you can combine those two, just dividing Rm by the Dm, and then you get a direct estimate of the average line of sight magnetic field along the line of sight. So here's a scenario. This is from one of the CRESS images from X's results. You have a fast radio burst in some different galaxy, and you detect it at Earth, and you have this giant integral along the entire sight line, and you have all of these different components that contribute to the rotation measure and the dispersion measure. And so the two relevant ones for this meeting are that some of that Rm and that Dm come from the halo of the Milky Way. And and also it's not on this diagram, but if you have an intervening galaxy, you could often get the rotation measure and dispersion measure of that intervener as well. So until a couple of years ago, there were only about a few dozen fast radio bursts known, but there is now this radio telescope CHIME up here in Canada that has found more than 1,000 fast radio bursts. So we're both building up useful statistics over the entire sky for the Milky Way halo, and we are also getting enough lines of sight from this and other telescopes that we are beginning to build up a statistical picture of what sight lines look like as they graze other galaxies as well. So here is just a map from CHIME showing you the distribution of fast radio bursts over the sky, and you can see that there are lots and lots of them. So two things to mention. One is that we can start to get a crude map of the electron density of the galactic halo. So this is from Amanda Cook, who will be hopefully participating in some of this workshop. This is sort of a smooth map of fast radio bursts over the Milky Way sky. This is in right ascension and declination, showing you that you can start to see the electron density distribution of the galactic halo from fast radio bursts. I think the thing for discussion right now is how do we maximize information out of these data? There's a lot of observational and statistical and systematic issues that we need to understand. We already have a map of the Faraday rotation over the whole sky using background extragalactic sources. So here's a map that's been around for more than 10 years of the rotation measures, but rotation measure gives you the product of N and B, and they can be hard to disentangle. So there is information on the halo here, but you can't tell whether it's electrons or magnetic field or both. But when we have a dispersion map of the Milky Way from fast radio bursts, we'll be able to combine the rotation measure and the dispersion measure and separate out maps of electrons and magnetic field. So my main interest is in the Milky Way halo and how we can use fast radio bursts and other traces to map out that. But X and others have been doing some very innovative work on how you can use fast radio bursts to probe the halos of other galaxies as well. So this is a brand new tool. I think that as well as actually using the data to extract physics, I hope that over the next 8 weeks or in the appropriate sessions, there's some discussions on just how to use this tool. What measurements do we need? What statistical tools should we begin using for the data that we already have? FRBs are very exciting, but they're also a complex tool. And I think we have a lot to think about in terms of how we use them to learn about halos. But I really hope that these can be used along with other traces to say a bunch of new things that we haven't said before. And so there's a Halo FRB channel on Slack, and I believe there'll be some discussions about this probably in the new probe session later on.
Right. So thank you very much for the impromptu mini tutorial. There'll be a more planned tutorial on Wednesday if you want to learn more about this. And in fact, even though this topic might seem like it belongs in week 8, what might we learn from future observations? We decided to really initiate the discussion now so it can play out over the whole 8 weeks of the workshop rather than just getting around to it in week 8. I see some questions coming up in the chat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something maybe, well, what I'm tempted to do right here is to say, I'd like you to type those questions into the conversation so that we can get things going in the conversation. We could surely spend time doing question answering now, but there's some interesting questions up here, like any evidence for lensed FRBs? And rather than trying to answer them here, I want people to be tempted to go to Slack and start talking about it. So yes, if you've typed a question into the chat, I would like you to join the FRB group and type the question in there.